Hi everyone, this is Julianne Victoria of Through the Peacock's Eyes. Welcome to my channel. So this video is going to be the rest of the days or the rest of the questions for the 31 days of witchcraft. I did independent or individual videos for the first 17 questions because it's 31 days in May 2020. And that's a lot of work. The videos are really short, but there's still the get the video up time, and that takes a lot of time. So I'm just going to do the rest of the questions in this one video because I think the answers will be pretty short as well. Okay. Plus, as I was reading through, I thought, oh, I did a video on this, I did a video on that. So I'll probably refer you to a lot of other videos down below. Okay. So number 18, question 18 is, oh, and if you want to check out the original video, this prompt was originated with Heather Carter. I'll have her original video and channel linked below as well. Okay, number 18. Do you use herbs and or crystals in your personal practice? If so, which are your favorites and why? So yes, I am an herbalist. I do use herbs both for healing purposes and for ritual purposes. And I did recently make a video about great herbs to use for healing cold and flu symptoms, if you want to check that out. And I also made a video which was also a tag VR, which was like my 3 of 9, where I talked about my top herbs. And I do have some crystals. I do use some crystals. I talked about this in the 3 of 9 video as well. And maybe I'll link that one on screen towards the end of this video because it does answer a lot of this question. But I don't have a whole lot of crystals. I'm very specific with what I have, and I usually buy one, purchase one, if I want one for a specific purpose. So yes, I use herbs and crystals in my personal practice. Herbs a lot, all the time, daily. I grow some herbs in my garden to make things like cough syrups and when in the winter, and chamomile tea and things like that. Okay, number 19, how did you come to your personal path? So I always say I have a boring answer about that. It's always how I've been. I've always been very spiritually inclined. In elementary school, I went to a Catholic school. I probably was called, if I don't remember it, or would have been called the holiest kid in the school, not just in my class. So I've always sort of been on this very spiritual, shamanic, or witchy path, if you want to call it that. But it is very spiritual and religious based. Number 20, what do you do when you are in a witchy funk? So I don't have an answer for that. I would say, so I'd have to rephrase it to answer, what would I do if I'm in a funk away from spirituality? And I can't say I'm really ever in like a spiritual funk because it's just so much a part of who I am and who I identify as. There have been times in my life when I've been away from a regular sort of spiritual practice, whether that is meditation or yoga or prayer. And those times in my life were times of great stress, not because I was away from my spiritual practices, whatever they might have been at a given point in time. But often it had to do with a relationship that put down or took me away from spirituality. So what do I do when I'm in a witchy funk or a spiritual funk? I'm not really in one anymore. And again, it's not so much of a funk when it was just life circumstances pulled me away from it. So what do? I go back to it, basically. Okay, a little rambly answer on that one. Number 21, what does the term, and she put in quotes, sacrifice mean within your personal practice? So of course, there's spiritual, religious, or witchy rituals where you offer a sacrifice. So sacrifice can be an offering, and an offering can be something like incense or herbs. But an offering can also be gratitude, and there's great power in the offering of gratitude, true gratitude that comes from the heart. Not like, oh, I should give gratitude and it's all intellectual. true gratitude, where you feel it, where you're so thankful, where you want to cry. To me, that's an offering. But really, like, so that's sacrifice in the sense of an offering. Then there's sacrifice, the sense of the word, where you're giving up something. And you could see, like, giving up something for Lent as a sacrifice. But really what that's about, and sacrifice in general, where it's sense of giving up something, it's sacrificing in the sense of letting go a part of the ego that is clinging to something. So it's very much a psychological thing that can be represented or manifested in a physical type of sacrifice or offering. So that's what it means to me. Okay. Number 22, is ancestor worship a part of your personal practice? Why or why not? So I call it doing a lot of ancestral work. I've done a lot of ancestral healing that has to do with healing things within myself that have passed on through generations, but it also is part of helping ancestors heal. I would not say I worship ancestors. I honor them, and worship and honoring can be interchanged. It really depends on the person. But I don't worship in the sense that they are something, a higher being than myself. It's honoring who they were, what they've left for future generations of theirs. And that's not really talking about physical things that they've left. So I honor them, ancestors, working with them. Again, the healing work, which I've talked a lot about, is a huge part of what my practice has been for the last several years. But I wouldn't say I worship them as in I put them up on a pedestal and, bow down to them type of worship. Okay, number 23. What would be your golden nugget of advice for a new witch? What do you wish you knew when you first started out? So since I've always been on a spiritual path, again, my boring answer, I kind of was born this way. It's just how I am. It's my personality. I was never really starting out. Of course, I've learned a lot of things along the way. I've studied many things, whether it's religion or a type of practice or spirituality or philosophy. And through that, I've chosen what to incorporate into my practice, what's resonated with me or not. So it's not like I haven't learned a lot along the way and that there isn't more to learn. But I was never really first starting out. So I can't answer that part. But what would be my golden nugget of advice for a new witch? And I actually wrote a little answer here as I read through these. I wrote, trust what you are called to and always be open to learn and explore. Okay, next question, number 24. Are you out of the broom closet? If so, how has the experience been for you? So again, I've always been very spiritual. I haven't always called myself a shaman, because if you've watched my other videos, I tend to use the word shaman rather than witch, although there is a whole lot of overlap between the two. But to me, there's a slight difference. So go check out, there's one video, I think it's like, do I call myself a witch? So check that out. So it wasn't really coming out, but really getting comfortable with calling myself a shaman. That started, let's see, so it's 2020 now. I probably started really using that term and sort of labeling myself that way. I think 2013, 2014, I really started to embrace that. I mean, I've been a healer, an actual professional healer since 2000. But I've always had that sort of healer energy. Even when I was in high school, my mom called me Dr. Julie, because I'd just be like, oh, well, you need to do this. And then I'd research something and look something up. And I love sciences and all that stuff. So that part has always been there. But identifying, using the label shaman, you could call that sort of coming out of the broom closet, because I do feel like that's just a part of who I am, who I was born into, the person, the expression that I am. But I did write a little note there. I was just reading my note. I don't always openly just talk about things to everyone, because some people it's uncomfortable for them to hear, especially very, very strictly extreme people, like religious people. who talking, you talk about energy healing, or you talk about lighting a candle in prayer that's not in a church, that can be uncomfortable for them because they're so boxed in by their religious beliefs and views, and that's fine for them. So I tend to just not talk about some things if I feel it's going to make some people uncomfortable, a little challenging when they ask me things like what I do. So I just sort of read their energy. So it's really about respecting what other people are comfortable with hearing and understanding. Yeah. But of course, on my channel, I talk about whatever. And you could say, like, doing this tag, this 31 days of witchcraft tag, because it is, using the term witchcraft and witch a lot, which again, I don't tend to, but I'm not against it. I just identify more as a shaman. That has brought some interesting angry trolling commenters. So, and this is sort of like in a different way coming out of the broom closet, but it's not like I was hiding it away. It's just presenting myself in a different perspective by doing this 31 days of witchcraft. That has brought some interesting reactions. Yeah. Okay. Number 25. Do you or would you teach the craft to others? So that's a challenging. I mean, I am a teacher. I've been teaching since college, various things. I've taught tarot and astrology, and I'm working on more online courses. So I am teaching the things I've studied and do and practice. And I'm still learning. I'm always, there's always more to learn. It's impossible to learn everything, in one lifetime. So I guess, yes, I am a teacher. Specifically, if it's like teach the craft, as in teach, prayers and rituals, or you can call them spells. To me, spells and prayers are highly interchangeable, though not always. Like teaching my practice, I'd rather just, share what I do. And I've started my new playlist, like Magic and Spirituality in My Everyday Life. So it's actually fun to make these little videos where it's all visual learning. And I'm doing that because I don't want people to just copy what I do. You do your own thing. If something I do inspires you, great, but don't just copy what I do just to copy, right? So in the sense, like teaching the craft as in my rituals and my practices, I don't know. I don't know. I've thought about it. I'd rather just share what I do in that sense there, but you never know. If I can find a way to do it where I would just emphasize, don't just do what I do. Do what resonates with you and learn what works for you. Okay, that's kind of going off on a tangent there. Okay, number 26. Is divination a part of your personal practice? If so, what tool do you favor? So yes, I use tarot and oracle cards and runes, Lenormand. I'm probably forgetting something there. And I tend to focus more on the spiritual counseling, the psychological part, the shadow work comes up a lot, the healing work through it. But inevitably, of course, and astrology, how could I forget that? Things come up like this is what's likely to happen given these energies at play, and you work with them, or you can choose to change them. So, yeah. Okay, number 27. Do you use prayer in your personal practice? Yes, that is a huge part. I have my daily prayers. If not, do you do anything similar to prayer? Like, again, prayers and spells, like you could call lighting a candle with an intention a spell, but to me it's a prayer too. Like, again, that's where it's like they're highly interchangeable, though not always exactly the same. Okay. 27. No, that was 27. 28. What belief system, if any, were you raised with? How has that impacted your personal practice? So I talked about this in the first video. Is my practice spiritual, religious, or secular? It's highly spiritual, religious influenced. So I went to Catholic school, although my home life, it wasn't like strictly Catholic. But I do incorporate the teachings of Jesus, which is kindness and acceptance. I did make a video called, I think it was Why I Say God. So I'm going to add that to the list of videos linked below to check out where I go deeper into that. Yes. And number 29, how do you feel about death? How has this impacted, how has this been impacted by your personal practice, or how has it impacted you? So I also made a video on death. I think it was something like death and dying. I'm going to link that below. I don't generally fear death. I faced death like my whole pregnancy. I didn't know if I was going to make it through childbirth. And I talk about in that death video. So I won't repeat all that here. I'll just link that below if you want to check it out. I go fairly in depth into it. Number 30, how do you feel about the popularization of witchcraft on social media? So I actually don't follow a lot of witchcraft social media. A little bit here and there. I actually try to limit how much I'm like consuming social media, because that can take up a lot of time and I have a lot to do. And so I know it's out there, the popularization of it. I know there was like, was it Sephora made like their little witchy makeup thing, and there was an uproar about that. So I'm aware of what's out there, but I'm not versed on it or highly knowledgeable about the popularization of it, so I can't comment on it. I mean, obviously the popularization is like, it's part business, it's marketing, it's advertising, but I don't feel I know enough to really comment on it. So, okay. Number 31, what is the most important lesson your craft has taught you? To trust myself and to trust in God and the universe. Okay. All right. Those are my answers for the 31 days of witchcraft. Thank you guys for being here. Check out those videos I've linked below that go more in depth into some of these answers if you're interested. Click the hashtag to see who else has participated if you want to look further into different people's answers for certain questions to get different perspectives for yourself. Thank you, Heather Carter, for starting this hashtag. And thank you guys for being here, for watching, liking, sharing, subscribing, and I'll see you back here soon.